Hi, my name is Erica, and I am a mom, I'm a writer, and I'm 4.5 years sober, something that I never thought I would be able to say. It's actually shocking to think that I can say it, when at one point going 30 days was like, clutching, what do you say, like a cat hanging on with your nails. And so anyway, I'm writing a book. I've written a book for women who struggle with their relationship with alcohol, whether that's like a feeling in your mind, a nudge in your heart that's like, something's not right with this. Like, I don't like the way alcohol has this pull on me or this overwhelm on me, the way I feel about it, and yet I continue to drink it. For all the way from that to people who really feel compelled to drink, who feel controlled by it, who are drinking way too much and making bad choices, who are worried about how they could impact their lives or the lives of their children. And within those two spectrums, you may be someone that nobody knows has a drinking problem. And that's sort of what led me to want to write this book. And it's because, you have this stereotype of an alcoholic person, which is very obvious, which everybody knows they have a drinking problem. And then you have this person over here who has no problem at all. But then there's all of these people in the middle, and they call that gray area drinking. And gray can be light gray, can be dark gray. But a lot of times those people in the middle don't feel like we have a space, or we don't have a place. We don't, you may not feel confident enough or courageous enough, or even feel like you need to walk into an AA meeting, which, by the way, walking into an AA meeting is really, 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 really hard. That's huge. That's a physical space. And so I was that woman that felt like I had an issue with drinking, a very unhealthy, toxic relationship with alcohol, but also someone that was, a happy mother. I had a full-time job. I'm leading Bible studies. I'm going to church. No one has ever said to me, hey, I think you might have a drinking problem. But in the back of my mind, I knew I had a problem. And even when I would maybe bring it up to someone, maybe even my husband or my best friend, like, hey, I feel like, I don't know, do I have a thing with drinking? Nobody ever told me I did. That's not their fault. But it was like I gaslit myself into thinking it was fine. Like, kept telling myself I kept thinking I had a problem, but then telling myself I didn't, because society told me I didn't, because my friends and family told me I didn't, because nothing horrible had ever happened to me. And yet I felt so imprisoned by this desire to drink, by, the times when I would have too much, or I didn't want to stop, or the times when it took my emotions to a place that was like very low, my anxiety to a place that was very high, to the times I'm waking up in the middle of the night going, I can't believe I did that again. Even if it's not, doing something crazy, but to drink 3 huge glasses of wine or a full bottle of wine, that would take me to a very low place. I would be going, I'm not drinking the rest of the week, or I've got to stop drinking. And then by, the next day at 5 o'clock, or the next day after that, I would be like, oh no, like that feeling is coming back. And like, I don't know how to get rid of it. And the only way to get rid of it is to have a drink. And because it's perfectly acceptable for, a busy, stressed out mom to have wine with dinner, I had every excuse in the world to always have wine with dinner. And because alcohol is an addictive substance, I trained my body to want that and to feel like it needed that. Now, at the time, I didn't know. I didn't really understand that that's what I had done. I didn't really understand that I put myself in this situation because of the way I consumed. Not to say that addiction of any kind is really your fault, but just to say that when you don't know what you've done, or you don't know what's causing the desire to drink, you're really in the dark about how to solve that, how to get out of that, how to find freedom from it. So all that to say, a little bit of backstory on how I got here and why I'm writing this book. I'm writing this book, and I tell this story, and I share this message. I've written about it for the New York Times, for the Wall Street Journal, for Christianity Today, for everywhere. I've told my story, and I always feel a little bit like weird about it. It's like, I feel like people might look at me and think, why would you tell your personal business to the world? Part of that's just me. Like, I'm a person that's very open. Part of it is me feeling like the more people that talk about this openly, the less people are going to feel shame about it and are going to get help, are going to take that step they need to like get free from this. Because when you realize that it's not abnormal and you're not some really particular kind of bad, or this doesn't actually reflect on how strong your faith is or what kind of a Christian you are, then you realize like this is just like any other issue that someone may have, and you can step forward and get help. And I'm telling you, when I thought about, quitting drinking, I was like, I think I should. I really don't know how that's possible though. Really don't know how that's possible. I mean, it was hard enough going through pregnancy, which I did go through pregnancy, and you'll find that women who struggle with drinking, unhealthy relationship with drinking, pregnancy often isn't a problem for them. I don't know if it's just like your body taking over, or if it's just that that you're truly living for someone else at that time. But I was not tempted to drink, but I sure was like the day after I gave birth, and it all just started right back up again. But the reason that I want this message out there is because I really did feel like it was impossible. I really felt like there's no way I can actually give this up. This is something that I do like probably 5, 6 out of 7 days a week. It's at everything you do. It's at a baby shower, it's at a concert, it's at a wedding, it's at a vacation. It's at, your Friday barbecue. It's at everything. And everything I had done in my adult life that was, quote, fun seemed to involve alcohol. And of course, not every situation I went through with alcohol was bad. Like, I have lots of fun times and memories. And that's one of the reasons that it was hard to want to give up, because I was like, well, if I give up alcohol, am I giving up those things? If I give up alcohol, am I going to miss out on like all these really fun, special moments? And saying it now feels a little bit like, really, like that sounds really shallow or something. But honestly, it's not shallow, because we have trained our brains and bodies to think that these things were special or happy or fun or memorable because alcohol was part of it. When what I've realized coming around, many years now, is that those things were not fun because of alcohol. They were fun because of the people, the experiences, the situations, the places that we were, the moments that they encapsulated for us. Alcohol may have heightened some sense of emotion in that moment, but in reality, it wasn't the alcohol. And I use this example of when I went to a concert, the first sober concert I went to, which I was really nervous about, because I thought, oh, how can I go to a concert without drinking? Like, that's crazy. But at the concert, the atmosphere was so fun. It was like a warm summer night. I was drinking my water, my Diet Coke, eating my sour gummy worms, and I was chatting with friends. I was having a good time. I was like, this is so weird. I feel drunk. And then I was like, wait a second. That's not drunkenness. That's just like fun. It's the excitement. It's the enchantment of the moment. Like, we confuse these good feelings and fun feelings. We get it all mixed up because alcohol was involved. What you'll find later is that that's really not what it was. Like, what you'll find later is that feeling that you had really not a whole lot to do with the alcohol. And when you're not drinking the alcohol, you don't have to have the after effects of it. But I want you to know, if you're watching this, I'm getting off track. I say this message to know that from someone that didn't think that she could ever quit drinking, she did. And it wasn't easy, and it was not linear. And I messed up along the way. I had to start over along the way. I had tough moments to grit my way through. I had to use every tool and resource in the book. I had to join a community. I had to read the books. I had to listen to the podcast. I had to hear other people's stories. I had to tell my friends at church what I was going through. I had to ask for prayer. I had to pray. I had to believe that there was something better. I had to believe that when people said that it was better on the other side and that I wouldn't be oppressed by alcohol and that I could have freedom, I had to believe that that was true before I felt it. And I had to believe that God was calling me to something better. It's like so many times we talk about our faith and we repeat Bible verses, and yet when it comes down to that hard moment where we actually have to believe what the Bible says, we actually have to believe when God says, I have something better for you, that he wants to replace your ratty old stuffed animal with like a huge brand new real horse or something like that. Maybe that's a bad example. But we have to believe that in the moment. And when we finally it really is a step of faith. It's really like these hard, uncomfortable, like yuck feelings. Like they're so hard to get through, but that's the only way that you ever know that it is true. It's the only way that you can say with confidence to someone else, like, trust God. Not that you've never done that before, but when it comes to something this big, I will tell you, your faith is going to be in a different place, on a different level on the other side of it. And I don't know, I say that to anyone watching, because when I was back in my days of questioning this, which I did for probably, 10 years before I actually made any steps to get out of it, I didn't have anyone to talk to. I saw no Christian women out there talking about this. Number one, it just wasn't as prevalent. Like, social media wasn't as prevalent. There wasn't as many voices out there. Now there are a lot more. But I would have loved to find a person that was like, hey, me, Christian woman, have an unhealthy relationship with alcohol. I struggle with it. I have struggled with it. I don't know if I'm an alcoholic. I don't want to say that. I don't know if I need to quit. I don't know what to do. All I know is that this has been hurting me. It's been hurting my spiritual life. It takes over my mind. I feel like I make bad choices with it. I don't know how to get over it. I don't know what to do, but like, you're not alone. And I never found that at the time. And maybe that's what took me so many years to walk out of it. So I just put my stuff out there. I talk about this because I don't want anyone else to have to wait 10 years. I don't want anyone else to be stuck in that life for as long as I was, going, am I still going to be struggling with this in 10 years, in 20 years, in 30 years? Because I could look at my life, back then, 5 years ago, before I got sober, and I could say, I could see myself still struggling with this until I die. Now, I don't think that a problem with alcohol, addiction, anything, whatever you want to call it, I don't think that has anything to do with your salvation. I think as a Christian, you are saved by grace, and you just keep walking towards God, doing the best you can. He forgives. But do I think that you are going to have the best life that you can here on earth while still trapped in that? I don't. And I think that it's really a cool reminder to think that our lives, our eternal lives, they've already begun. And so we're living out the life that we are always going to be living. We're living that now. And we can start living that in freedom from this substance, or we can stay stuck in it until later, which you can do, but I don't recommend. And so the title of my book that's coming out in January is called Freely Sober. And I just love that title because being sober is not, it's not something I did because I had to. It's not something I did because someone made me, or someone said, you got to get sober or your life is going to blow up. You got to get sober or I'm going to divorce you or you're going to lose your job. Nobody said that to me. Nobody said, oh, if you're a Christian, you can't drink. That's wrong. Because that's not even true. Freely sober is because now that I know what I know, and I've learned and I've worked the resources and I've spent real, true time understanding myself and my history with alcohol and why I drink and all of these things, now I can freely choose. I don't drink, not because I have to, but because I don't want to. Because I've stepped away from that. And is my life 100,000% different? No, but it's better. It's like levels better. I think there's a book out there that came out a few years ago called 10% Happier. And I don't know if I would classify it that way. But there's a lot more peace. There's a lot more brain space. My connection with God is so much more clear, because before it was so drowned out by the alcohol. All of my prayers would somehow relate back to that. And I just couldn't grow. I couldn't grow any bigger. And is that okay? Like, sure, I can still live my life, but I'm not going to grow as a Christian. I'm not going to be able to glorify God any more than I was. I'm going to just remain stuck in this place, and I didn't want to remain there. And so after all of this, I stepped into learning about alcohol. I stepped into learning about other people's stories. I stepped into the possibility of could I do this someday? But also knowing that it's one day at a time and I never have to commit to forever. I choose to be sober freely. And I think that's the key. So many of us walk into these conversations about alcohol and this unhealthy relationship or this struggle or this addiction, and we think, well, I have to quit. You can't think that way. Because if you tell yourself you have to, then that eliminates the possibility of wanting to. And you can walk into this without any, directives. You don't have to, I have to quit. No, like walk into this, like with curiosity, walk into this wanting to learn more, read some books, like figure out how does alcohol affect the body, not just spiritually, but like the way that it affects our actual bodies and our brains. I mean, I'm not going to get into it here, but it is fascinating and it is a little bit scary when you think about it. And this combination of factors, this knowledge portion, this sharing portion, this God, prayer, spiritual portion, and just the freedom to take in all that information in prayer and with God guiding you. And then at the end of it, you can say, okay, now I can make a decision in freedom. So, all that to say, that's why I wrote the book. That's why I'm kind of building this message, this community. And if you have questions that you are interested in me answering or anything you are curious about me talking through, leave a comment below. I would love to hear from you. You can message me on Instagram at Erica_Anderson. You can email me on my website if you want to remain anonymous, whatever. But I don't know, I'm putting this out there because I want you to know you're not alone. I want you to know it's possible, even if it doesn't feel possible. And I want you to actually use the faith that you know that you have, even though it's really hard. So thanks for listening. I hope this reaches the right people.